Over the last, not just couple of years, probably over the last 10 years, the world has changed very quickly, right? With technology, with new systems, political winds blow much more easily these days. And one thing that people struggle with is how to react to that. How do we make decisions in this type of environment? And historically, when you had a lot of time to make decisions, you could pull together groups of people and sort of ruminate on things. You could take time to really thoughtfully process things. Now we can't do that anymore. And we're struggling to make good decisions in crucial times. I think the world will judge coronavirus and how we reacted to it in the next decades, probably, I think, fairly critically. Not because people did anything intentionally wrong, just, man, so much going on, so fast having to make decisions, and some of those decisions weren't good. So my takeaway is this. We have to learn to think differently about how we make decisions and how we use information and data to make those decisions, because we've got to make decisions differently today than we ever have. The other point that I want people to take away is a lot of the landscape, the way the world works today is different than the way it worked 5 years ago, and it's going to be a lot different in another 5 years. So for business leaders, whether you're in oil and gas, small business owner, entrepreneur, you're in education, recognizing that the world is changing very quickly is an important part of thinking forward. You got to be thinking 5 years down the road. You cannot just be thinking about today because things are changing so quickly. And if you don't evolve with it, then you get a chance to miss opportunities. I would say that the market is going to be incredibly positive. Now that's a little bit counter, right? People are like, wait a minute, we're hearing all this ESG stuff, shut down oil and gas, carbon capture. Seems like the pressure is on, and I agree. The fact is, what that is driving is a very low amount of investment. And when there's low investment and yet still demand for product, that means there's a supply-demand imbalance, i.e. people want more oil, more natural gas, and more petrochemicals than the world will be able to make in another couple of years. So you're going to see very, very positive, very large margins in these businesses. So when you look at the next 2 or 3 years, it's going to be a great time for people to do two things: to jump into those markets and figure out how to make positive improvements and how to make profits and how to really set businesses up well. But in setting a business up well, it's a chance to pivot, to use those profits, use those gains to transition the business, to be well positioned for the transition I'm talking about 5 years, 10 years down the road, when the pressure will be on and the markets may go down. The technical challenge is this kind of weird market imbalance that we are dealing with in a lot of different ways. You just mentioned the employment issue. Like, at the same time the government is sending out stimulus checks, we have record challenges with employment. We literally can't find people to do work. And this is a real unstable imbalance. And when you look at things like houses being built and they can't get windows and doors, they're sitting there, just no work going on for months because we can't get the products. So there are technical imbalances. Same thing's happening in oil and gas. Right now, people are like, we need oil, we need gasoline, we need natural gas to power the world. Still represents more than half the energy. It's almost 2/3 of the energy comes from those products. And yet, there's a lack of investment going into those businesses to supply that product. So these technical imbalances that have been caused a lot by coronavirus are going to be one continuing challenge. The more philosophical one is fear. Unfortunately, in the last year and a half, I think that the world has become accustomed to overreacting to fear. Now, that's a very sensitive subject. Ryan, what are you saying? People are dying from coronavirus. I know. And it is tragic, and I know people, I've had friends, I've had family that have succumbed to coronavirus. At the same time, we can't shut down all of life because of fear. We have to figure out how to manage through that, how to navigate. What are the real risks? Right? We face risks all the time, risks of accidents, risks of financial loss, risk of other diseases other than coronavirus. How do we face those risks logically and practically and not simply shut down due to fear? And I think that we've seen a philosophical shift toward reacting to fear that has become very difficult to run businesses, to live lives, to experience, to raise children. So that's going to be another headwind that we've got to face as a society, I think, in the next 2 or 3 years.